Hello, everybody. It's great to see you here this morning. Let me ask you if you ever found yourself in a situation similar to this. Someone has news, they have information they want to share with you, and then they begin the conversation, and then it transitions to where they say, I have some good news, and I have some bad news. You ever find yourself in that situation, that setting? I'm just curious, how many of us would prefer to have the bad news first? Good news, people? Who didn't vote? That's the majority. Okay, good. Let me just have a little fun with that and tell you this story. There was a defense attorney, and he met with his client, and he told his client, I have some good news and I have some bad news. He started with the bad news. He said, the bad news is your blood test came back, and the DNA matches the blood found on the murder weapon, on the victim, and in the getaway car. The good news, your cholesterol is down to 140. Probably really doesn't matter where the cholesterol is, right? He's not going to necessarily have an issue with that later. Here's another example. The good news about computers is they do what you tell them to do. Now to the bad news. They do what you tell them to do. One more. The good news about entrepreneurship, if you're the boss, if you own the company, is your fate is in your hands. The bad news, your fate is in your hands. This morning, I have some good news and I have some bad news. I'm going to start with the good news. Many of us are rich. And your immediate pushback is, no, dear, you don't know me. I am not rich. I do not feel rich. According to the globalrichlist.org, if you make $33,000 or more a year, you're in the top 1% wage earners in the world. Bump that up to $80,000 a year, and you are the 6,253,513th richest person alive in the world today. That's like top 1/10 of 1%. I mean, it's just like crazy. I mean, it's just like being mega wealthy. God has given many of us much more than we need. We are incredibly blessed. Now understand, I know this is by comparison because you could say, well, Daryl, there is no way you could live on $33,000 a year here. I get it. I know it's comparative riches. I still believe, by most standards, many of us are rich. That is the good news. Now let me get to the bad news. The bad news is many of us are rich. Many of us are rich. You may say, wait a minute. No, I am not. I cannot pay my bills. I can't afford to live in this area on that salary for sure. I'm not ready for retirement. I'm not saving appropriately. I do not have my kids' college funds fully funded. I am not rich. But we have rich people problems. Like you called to get a hair appointment last week, they didn't have the time you wanted. Rich people problems. Or you ordered a hamburger. You asked for no pickles. You bit into a pickle. Some people would like to have a meal once in a while. We get upset when we have a pickle on a hamburger. Some, maybe it's this. It's like you go downstairs to do a little bit of work while you're watching some TV. Let's just say you're in the man cave, and all of a sudden you realize that your cell service is lousy. And you're going like, man, I paid good money for this. What? One stinking bar? Are you serious? Walk upstairs and outside, and now you have bars. I mean, this is what we call rich people problems. Now, I want to move from the physical ideas, the physical examples, and move it more to a spiritual level, if we may. Because we have been so blessed, one of the ramifications is that it's typically harder for us, therefore, to trust in God. It's like, I can trust in my stuff, I can trust in what I possess and what I have, I can trust in these riches, but it's a little more difficult for me to trust fully in God. I mean, I've been blessed. And because we've been so blessed, we have so many more opportunities that can lead us to places where we forget our one true love and the fact that we are truly blessed. This morning, we are kicking off a new 4-week teaching series called Crazy Rich. And we're going to talk about some of the challenges money brings into our lives and how we can deal with those in a biblical way. We're going to talk about it personally and real from God's Word. Today, we're going to talk about the deceitfulness of riches. The deceitfulness of riches. And I want us to see that wanting more is not always bad, but we must not get distracted by looking for satisfaction in the wrong places. Now, maybe you're going like, well, Daryl, I have no idea where you came up with that title. I'm not even sure I like it. Definitely don't even know if I agree with it. The deceitfulness of riches. Where did you find that one? Actually ripped it off from Jesus. In Matthew chapter 13, there is this event taking place where there's a guy, a farmer, who is sowing some seed. And as soon as the seed sprouts and it begins to grow, Jesus speaks. And he says, the deceitfulness of riches choked out the growth. Obviously, Jesus is using a metaphor and he's painting a picture and a story about the deceitfulness of riches. The deceitfulness that this world can rip away from us and choke out, in essence, our spiritual growth. Let me give an example just to see if I can frame it in a way that we understand. Have any of you had some delicious pizza at a place where they have games and tokens and tickets that you can win? I'm sorry, maybe delicious. I'm sorry, some of you may own one of those and like see me afterwards. I mean, great pizza, right? That's why we go there. But in the process, you earn tickets if you play games really, really well. You've been there. You know what I'm talking about. Okay. So you go there and you play. And all of a sudden, if you see your kid or maybe your grandkid and they're like lousy playing this game, you shove them out of the way. You gently move them because you want to play the game well to get more tickets. I mean, there are prizes on the line, baby. We have got to get some tickets. And then at the end of the night, you've accumulated 743 tickets. You take them up to this counter that has all of these grand prizes and you pick up one of these. You pushed your kid out of the way for a finger puppet. Really? Well, listen. We get older, and as adults, the tickets change, and they become these. We want money. Big stacks. Big bills, preferably. We want money. And suddenly we think if we can get enough of these, then we can have security. We can have happiness. We can have security. See, my friends, here is the pull of our culture. This is where the deceitfulness of riches will take us if we're not careful. The world wants us to serve money instead of God. The world wants us to serve money instead of God. Jesus said this in Matthew 6:24. No one can serve two masters. Either he will hate the one and love the other, or he will be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money. Now, in that verse, notice what Jesus did not say. He did not say you cannot serve God and popularity. You cannot serve both God and fame. You cannot serve both God and the devil. He didn't use those phrases. What he said clearly is you cannot serve both God and money. Now, when I look at that phrase, I'm like, why did he use the word money? You ever thought about that? Why money? Why that analogy? Surely there was something else that he could have used. I would argue that Jesus used the word money because it is such an attractive false god. It is such an attractive false god. Jesus knew that for many of us, money and the promises of what it could buy would be the number one competitor for our hearts. Now, why is money such an attractive false god? It's because money promises what only God can provide. Money promises what only God can provide. Money promises a lot of things in this world. I wanted to look at two of them this morning. So take your sermon notes and follow along. Here is the first one. The first promise of money is this. Money promises happiness. If I just get a few more of these, then I will be happy. If I can just earn a few more tickets, then I can get a bigger prize, and I will be happy. Money promises happiness. If I can just get more, if I can get my stack bigger, I will be happy. If I can just get more, I could buy a pair of shoes that would match my purse, that would match my bracelet, that would match my earrings, and then I would be happy. My wardrobe would be complete. I just want a few. If I could just get a few more, I could get the coolest smartphone, the latest and the greatest. I would be happy. If I could just get a few more, I would get the car that I want. I deserve this, right? I want a new lawnmower. I deserve this. You fill in the blank with what it is you would like. Money promises what only God can provide. The reality is, it doesn't matter how much you have, only God can provide lasting happiness. You and I get into this idea, we want more and more and more and more and more, and then when we get it, we want more and more and more and more and more and more. That is the lure of money. Only God can provide lasting happiness. Here's the second promise of money. Money promises security. Money promises security. If I get enough, then I will be secure. I mean, if I could just pay off all of my debt, then I would be secure. If I made twice what I make right now, then I would be secure. But all you have to do is get a whole lot of money, watch someone you dearly love battle a dreaded disease, and suddenly you realize you cannot buy your way out. Money cannot provide security. Suddenly you realize that money cannot provide what only God can provide. Now, most of us would say, well, Daryl, I would have to just let you know that I don't serve money. I don't serve money. And I would gently push back. And I would say, well, if you have ever bought something you did not need with money you don't have to make somebody happy and like you that you don't even like, you have probably fallen into the temptation of using money, of worshiping money, of being under the power of money. You're believing that the tickets and what it purchases will bring you some kind of security, some kind of happiness. But the only place you can find that is with God. If you've ever compromised your integrity and cheated on an expense report, I would say that you're probably under the impression and power of money. If you've ever downloaded music or a movie that you did not pay for, I would say you are under the power of money, claiming and thinking if you have more, you will be better off. If you've ever gone to Disney World and told your 14-year-old that today they're 11, I would bet that you're under the power of money because you're thinking if I can just get a little bit more, things will be better. If we get you in cheaper, we have food money, honey. Do you want to eat today? I'm 11. Right? It's the pressure that we place. Money is a false god. It promises what only God can provide. Now, where do we go to get some encouragement and some help for this? There's a guy in the Bible by the name of Paul. Paul wrote a significant portion of the New Testament. He was a church planter. He was a missionary. And he had some words for a young preacher guy named Timothy. And he goes up to Timothy and he says, Timmy, here's what I want you to know. You're going to come across some rich people. And here's what you're going to tell people who are rich. I'm going to tell you, they're going to have some issues. They're going to push back. They're going to say they're not rich. They're going to want more. They want a bigger stack. But let me tell you, Tim, how you're going to handle people who are rich in this world. And here's what he tells him. Command those who are rich in this present age. And again, I'd hit the pause button, and if we were at lunch, I would say, in this present age, most of us in here are rich. Most of us. And he says, not to be arrogant. And here's the part of the verse I want us to focus on this morning. Nor to, and I want us to say this out loud together. That means out loud so we can hear each other, okay? Nor to, help me, put their hope in wealth. To me, that says, do not be deceived by the deceitfulness of riches. Do not put your hope in wealth, which is so uncertain, but put your hope in God, who richly provides us with everything for our enjoyment. Verse 18, command them to do good, to be rich in good deeds, and to be generous and willing to share. So Paul comes alongside this young preacher boy named Timothy, and he says, hey, listen, when you're talking to people who are rich in this present world, I want you to tell them this. Don't trust in the riches of this world. They're so uncertain. They change so fast. Put your hope in God. I want you to trust in the one who richly provides instead of in the riches. This morning, I want to drive these thoughts deep within our hearts and show us 3 problems that people who love and trust in money have. And I want to encourage you to sort of let your guard down and let God's Spirit speak to you, because I've been able to identify from these some areas I have to work on. My wife wasn't overly thrilled that on Friday and Saturday I was working on a budget again. And so just know this, I walk it and I live it too, okay? Let's see what we can learn about ourselves in these areas. Here's the first problem. People who love and trust money never have enough. They never have enough. If I ask you, are you satisfied with your income? Are you satisfied with what you have? Your response would most likely go something like this. Well, not really. I would like to have just a little bit more. Just a little bit more. That could be an indication you love and trust in money. There's a guy by the name of Solomon who in black and white said this. Whoever loves money, now help me out. Whoever loves money never has money enough. Whoever loves wealth, what? Is never satisfied with his income. It does not matter how big their stack gets, they are still going to want more. In fact, if we love and trust money, then how much money do you need to be happy, to feel secure? Just a little bit more than you have now. If we love and trust money, it doesn't matter how much we get, it's never enough. Again, money is promising something it cannot deliver. Only God can deliver it. Now, we just finished an 8-week series in the book of, good, we don't have to go back and repeat it, book of Proverbs. In the book of Proverbs, there are a lot of verses that deal with money. There's a reason we did not use them in the last 8 weeks. I knew we were going to go for the next 4 weeks. You just didn't know that. But I want to use a couple of verses today, God's greatest book on wisdom, right? This is the world's greatest wisdom book ever written. There is a beautiful imagery in chapter 18, verse 11. The wealth of the rich, and again, we have to admit, most of us would raise our hands if we were to say, yeah, I'm probably wealthy. I've got more means than many. The wealth of the rich is their fortified city. Again, we have to know the context. In those days, if your city was fortified, there was a wall around it that provided protection. Enemies could not get in. They couldn't penetrate the wall. So it's like, hey, I've got a strong defense. They imagine it an unscalable wall. If it's unscalable, there's a sign of safety. You're protected. It's like if we get enough money, then we can buy away all of the bad things that we might experience in life. We can load up with enough insurance that we will be okay. I can get my dental insurance, I can get my eye insurance, I can get my long-term care insurance, I can get my life insurance, I can get my homeowner's insurance, I can get my automobile insurance. You can just name it, right? We can buy enough protection so that we don't fall prey to all of these other things. Now, there's some wisdom in having some protection, okay? I'm not telling you to go out and cancel all your policies. But what I am saying is we cannot overcome many of the problems that we will face in this life. Again, we cannot ensure happiness. We cannot ensure security. That is the deceitfulness of riches. Now, maybe you're going like, this is getting like a little bit personal. Well, we haven't really gotten to the personal part yet. Okay, so just sort of stay with me. You haven't felt just a tick of pressure. Just hang on. Here's the second problem. People who love and trust money find it increasingly difficult to give big. They find it increasingly difficult to give big. Through the years, I have talked to lots of people who would love to give big. They would love to be generous. They have a heart for it, but their response is, and the issue is, they just don't think they can afford to. They're going like, I just can't afford to. In fact, there may be some of you in here this morning who are going like, yeah, I really think the Bible teaches tithing, but I don't. I just can't afford to. And if that is a new word to you, the idea of tithing, it's the fact that we give the first dime of every dollar we earn back to God as a worship offering. Maybe you're going like, I would like to, but I just can't afford to. Some of you would like to maybe be generous in other ways. Maybe you're at a restaurant and you're going like, man, I'm just feeling impressed that I could bless this server and I could change their week, their month, maybe their entire year. Man, if I had left them a $100 tip, I mean, it would just change them. And I just can't afford to. Maybe you're like, man, I would have loved to have not only bought some school supplies, but I would like to have put clothes on a whole family for back to school, to bless them. I just don't think I could afford to. Now, I would love to pay their rent for a month just to give them some breathing room. I would love to. I just can't afford to. You see, when we feel like we can't afford to, in our mind, we're putting our faith and our trust in how big our stack is, not in God. It's been proven over and over and over again in studies that wealthier people give a smaller percentage of their income away than those who are less blessed. In fact, if you look at just in our country, the top giver percentage-wise is people who make less than $12,000 a year. Give a bigger percentage of their income away to help and to bless others. Now, obviously, there are some exceptions. Many of those exceptions are here in this room and in our church family. But understand, Jesus does not care about amounts. He does care about percentages. He does care about hearts. There was one time in Jesus' life and in his ministry where there was a poor widow lady who came to the temple to give an offering. And that day, as the basket passed, she dropped in 2 coins. And Jesus took note. And he got everyone's attention and he spoke these words. She gave more than anybody else. Now, what Jesus is referring to is percentage. She gave a bigger percentage than anybody else. In fact, she gave 100%. She gave it all. She gave it all. Now, understand in that context, there were some rich Pharisees who were in the room. And they were like, whoa, ho, 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 obviously you didn't see what I dropped in today, did you? I gave more than 2 coins. I dropped in quite a bit, matter of fact. And Jesus said, no. She gave 100%. She gave it all. Jesus was concerned about a percentage, but what he was really focused on was her heart. She was not trusting in her stack. She was not lured by the deceitfulness of riches. See, a lot of times in our culture, we'll say things like, I will give when. I will give when the credit card bill gets paid. I will give when the kids' college fund is funded. I will give when we get the mortgage paid off. I will give when you just fill in the blank. I will give when. And God says, no. I don't want you to give when. I want you to give now. I want you to give now out of obedience. I don't want your heart to be crushed by the deceitfulness of riches. I hope and pray that we individually, we as a church, could be drawn into the generosity that was in Corinth. Look at these words from Paul. Out of the most severe trial, their overflowing joy and their extreme poverty welled up in rich generosity. For I testify that they gave as much as they were able and even beyond their ability. God wants us to well up with rich generosity and to not be tripped up by the deceitfulness of riches. Problem 1, if you love and trust money, you'll never have enough. Problem 2, if you love and trust money, you'll find it increasingly difficult to give big. Problem number 3, if you love and trust money, you'll have money in the bank, but no peace in your heart. Some of you say, well, technically, Darryl, if you were to look at my statement, there's really not that much in the bank. But just think about the assets that you manage. You know, you can sort of open up the door and you can say, look in the garage and there's the toys. You can look in the closet. Wow, you got how many pair of shoes? Oh, some people have 0. How many? Okay, good. Oh, nice to know. Tell me about the pantry, the freezer. How much food you have on it? Could you eat for a couple of weeks, couple of months? Some people don't even know where today's meal is coming, even if they'll get one. Could we say that by standards, we are blessed more than most? We are rich. Many of us are. Again, Solomon, Proverbs, great wisdom. There's a passage that teaches us an important principle in chapter 15, verse 16. This verse, actually, my gut says most people don't buy this. Most people don't believe this. I hope it becomes a little more aware. Maybe we can change our posture in the way we do life. He wrote, better, how much? A little. Better a little with the fear of God than what? Than great wealth with turmoil. It's like better to have a little bit of wealth and a great big dose of God than a lot of stuff and an itsy-bitsy teeny-tiny little God. I mean, that's it. We need to have a big heart for God, not driven by wealth. So here's the deal. You may not be a billionaire. You may not be a millionaire. You may struggle to pay your bills month to month. But when we continue to put our hope in money, it takes us off track of what matters most. So let me see if I can say this as lovingly as I can. There are some of you seated here this morning who make more than your parents ever did. There are some of you seated here this morning who make more than you thought you ever would. But yet you find yourself in a place, in a position where your life is financially strapped and you are miserable. And you're going like, I just need more, and then everything would be okay. Well, the reason you are so strapped is because you consume everything God gives you. Quite honestly, there are other people who probably make a third, maybe a half of what you make, and they find themselves in a position where they are not strapped, they're not financially stressed. They realize it is better to live on less, and it is better to be a blessing to others, and it is better not to buy into the deceitfulness of riches. See, the bottom line is you honestly believe that more money will solve most of your problems. If that's you, I think you're under the influence of money, and possibly the deceitfulness of riches has consumed you. On your sermon notes, I listed a little diagnostic. I think there's like 5 questions I placed there. I totally borrowed those from a website. If you snap the QR code, it'll take you to that website. And there's actually a paragraph and some correlating verses that goes to each one of those questions. I want to challenge you and encourage you to dig in and to do the work and see how you fare when it comes to the deceitfulness of riches. Is there something there? Do you need to give this some attention in your life? See, this morning I want us to kick off this series by understanding more and more money will not solve our problems. What will solve most of our problems is more Jesus. More Jesus. More Jesus will solve more of our problems. You really think more money is what you need, but that's not true. More money is not going to keep your kids off drugs and out of jail. More money is not going to make your marriage better. More money is not going to keep that person that you love who's struggling with a disease alive. But what will get you through each of those situations and circumstances is more Jesus. More Jesus is what you need. More Jesus brings intimacy. More Jesus brings healing. And more Jesus brings purpose. And more Jesus brings meaning. More Jesus brings direction. So instead of saying, I need more money, I want more money, can we say, I want and I need more of Jesus? I want His purpose. I want His direction. I want His vision for my life. So many times we try to force our own way through life with stuff, with relationships. And we have to say, no, I need more of Jesus. I need more of Him in my life. We must fight off the deceitfulness of riches. So can we declare individually and as a church that we're not going to serve money? That we're not going to fall prey to the deceitfulness of riches? Can we do that? Can we understand that, yes, money is neutral. It's not good or it's not bad, but we should not serve it. We should serve God, not money. Again, back to our main text today. Command those who are rich in this present world not to be arrogant, nor to put their hope in wealth, which is so uncertain, but to put their hope in God, who richly provides us with everything for our enjoyment. Command them to do good, to be rich in good deeds, to be generous and willing to share. In this way, they will lay up for them treasure for themselves as a firm foundation for this coming age, so that they may take hold of the life that is truly life. You see, my friends, wanting more is not always bad, but we must not get distracted by looking for satisfaction in the wrong places. Yes, God has truly blessed us, most of us, with more than we ever will need. Let's make certain, though, to put our trust in the one who provides the riches instead of the riches. Let's pray. Jesus, thank you so much for your word.